In that case, and his hands moved out expressively, I have no explanation for the fact that you will give birth in 3 or 4 months. Welcome to Stories of Futures Past, written when 50 years ago was in the future. Today, I present to you Alien Invasion by Marcia Kamien, published 1954. A short story about a different kind of alien invasion. Riva cannot conceive how she has conceived, but it is true. And after the strange baby is born, she is contacted by the father. Enjoy. Alien Invasion by Marcia Kamien, originally published in Universe Science Fiction, March 1954. Narrated by Tom Trussell. Pain gripped Riva, pain worse than anything she had ever experienced before. It's true, she thought. It's all true. But her mind shrank away from the thought, leaving her a blank, save for the terrible pain. 2 doctors entered the room silently, and when one of them spoke to her, it was with a start of surprise that she opened her eyes and saw, instead of a red wall of hurt, their kind faces, and beyond them, the window looking out upon the calm countryside. Riva, the doctor said, "Tell me every time there is a pain." "It's true, then," she whispered. The doctor nodded, and she whimpered a little. "But how? Why?" The face above her, where she lay on the hospital bed, was still kind, but there was no answer in the eyes. Riva turned her head away. How had it happened? 9 months before, she had felt a strange sensation inside her in the night. She had thought nothing of it. And then, the lump growing in her abdomen, growing steadily. But she, an unmarried woman, an intelligent scientist with no emotional ties. However, there was life in her womb, life that would not be ignored, life that squirmed and kicked inside her and demanded care. She had gone to the doctor. There were many tests. And then the gentle voice of the medical man saying, "And you're sure you have had no, romantic interludes?" "Absolutely positive," she had snapped. "In that case," and his hands moved out expressively, "I have no explanation for the fact that you will give birth in 3 or 4 months. And that had been that. Now here she was in a maternity hospital waiting for whatever it was to be born. As she grimaced with pain and nodded to the waiting doctor, she turned her thoughts away from the horror that the child within her might not be a child. "You must be awake. Answer me." The voice was strange, cold, foreign. Riva shuddered beneath the blankets and turned her face away from the voice. It would not be denied. "You can't escape me, Riva. Answer." She raised her head, but there was no one in the room. She looked around wildly. You can't see me. Who are you? Never mind who we are right now. The child lives? It wasn't until then that she turned to look into the basket by her bed. Then she screamed. Hush, Riva, the voice commanded, but it was gentler now. Tell me about the child. It lives, doesn't it? Yes. Yes, it lived. It breathed. But half monster. How? She whispered in agony. We are a scientifically advanced world, and we have ways, but a dying world, Riva. Strange diseases taking our women from us, terrible heat burning our food, our livestock. This is an experiment, the voice continued. We cannot breathe your air, but a child, a mixture of your lungs and our lungs, might be able to survive. A child with our instincts. Do you understand? Riva nodded, then said, Yes. She was beginning to understand. Aliens coming to her world in the form of their monster children to take over this world. To take over, she murmured aloud, clenching her fists. No, Riva, the voice said, calmly and almost soft. We don't want to take over, but a world that has gone so far, done so much, been so good. Ah, Riva, ours is a world which must not entirely die and be lost. We nova shortly. When you look up at the sky, you will see us, burning like a bright, brief flame, and then we will be gone to eternity. The voice stopped for an instant, and Riva thought, wonderingly, he speaks like a poet, this alien. He feels so strongly, but so gently. We will try to send books and films by rocket, but we can only guess if they will survive. Again, the alien broke off his train of thought and added, more briskly, The child, Riva, is it female? She looked. Yes. There was a sigh of relief. Riva, there is not much time. Please listen to me. We chose you because of your intelligence, because you would listen and perhaps understand a little. She is not so different from you. Look at her closely and love her. You will love her because she is yours. Then he added, And mine, Riva. I am a great scientist. She will be very intelligent. She was calmer now. The voice was still soft, calm, and, she thought, intelligent. She knew they would try this again now, and that her own people would destroy these poor little creatures as soon as they were born, or maybe before. In the meantime, she would converse with the alien. As a scientist, she owed her people the information. And now she felt almost exhilarated, and listened quietly while the alien man spoke to her and, later, left. Then she turned and looked the infant over carefully. The poor thing was a mixture. It had her hair, her eyes, but the mouth was misshapen, and there was an arm missing, and the skin was like the belly of a dead animal, so pale and colourless it was. The doctor walked in and smiled, seeing her so calm. Ah, then everything is peaceful. He glanced at the basket and cleared his throat carefully. I must admit, he started, I was amazed. Aliens, she said shortly. I don't know how they do it, but they could be stopped. I speak to one of them. I'll find out. They must be very intelligent. The doctor touched the baby with a careful finger. Poor deformed thing, he muttered. You will try to forget this, Riva. We'll have it destroyed now that these aliens have made contact. He touched the child again. Riva said nothing, looking down at the baby. Did they say who they are? The doctor asked. Riva looked at the infant, then the doctor, and took a deep breath. Do not destroy that child. The doctor's head came up with a jerk. No, she insisted. That child is mine. Anyone else may do as they wish. I shall take a chance. Perhaps she will be much like her father. The doctor stared at her. He spluttered, Of course, you're right, of course. Riva smiled at him a little. Yes, she said, addressing the baby in the basket. I shall take a chance on you, little half-one, on you and your world, and I shall call you by the name your father called himself, a strange name, but yours. Riva's hand was soft on the infant's head. I name you, she said, ignoring the doctor, Earthman. Then she added, And may you love the planet your father called Venus as much as I. The end. About the author. This Marcia Kamien, birth unknown, death unknown, is a bit of a mystery. A one-shot wonder or a pseudonym? There does not seem to be any information about this specific author to be found online, or it might simply be a case of the proverbial needle in the haystack of namesake, Marcias and Kamiens. Anyway, this story is one of 3 credited to this name, 2 of which were published in 1954 and 1 in 1957. There is a novel called Nurses from 1997, and later several assorted joke collections credited to an author by this name, but there is no way of knowing if it is the same Marcia Kamien or not. This story was extensively researched and no evidence have been uncovered to indicate its US copyright was renewed. The text is therefore deemed to be in the public domain. It has been painstakingly transcribed by yours truly and is destined to be made into a free ebook for the world to enjoy. Do you want to know how you can help save more such stories? Go to storiesoffuturespast.substack.com/about.